Buying your second home is completely different than buying your first home. The good news is that you already own the real estate, but the challenge is figuring out how to use that equity to make the next move. So, if we haven't met before, my name is Greg Skiba. I'm a mortgage agent here in Ontario, and I help homeowners make smarter decisions, whether that's refinancing, debt consolidations, or moving into the next home without stretching your finances or your monthly budget. Today, I wanted to run us through a real life scenario that I see, and this is a couple that is in their early ish 30s, I should say. They bought their home back in 2018. Since then, they've gotten married, had some kids, and the current home just isn't working for them anymore. It's not working the way that they wanted it to at this point, right? So, what I wanted to show you is what we do for clients. And this is we have to figure out exactly what you're going to have left after the sale of your home, right? We have to figure out what you owe, pay the realtor, what's left with you to put into the next house. So, what we started with was a conservative number for the sale price. So, we were given about 765. So, if we throw in some legal fees here, and I've got this whole section highlighted here. So, if we throw in legal fees about 1750 and we remove about 355,000 for the mortgage, that's what's left. You'll see I didn't put any mortgage penalties in here because we're going to try to time this right around where their renewal is, where we can have uh, the smallest penalty, or no penalty at all. And we're throwing in 5% for the real estate commissions to the realtor and taxes, right? So after the dust settles, they've got 364,800. So $364,800 left to put into their next house. Now, this is assuming they're not taking anything else from savings. They're not liquidating any sort of investments to put into this. Uh, as of right now, their goal is not just to buy a bigger house, but they want to keep a healthy monthly budget while making a smart long-term decision. So we're just going to take what's in here and throw it in there, right? So we've got that 364, and you'll see we've built out sort of a conservative, balanced, and aggressive scenario, right? So if these two have found a home that they love and they want to put an offer down. So um, let's look at what this would kind of shake out as. So we look at their amortization. They've right now decided that they want to consider a 20-year amortization. They want to pay this off a little sooner, right? They're not going for a 30. They're not going for a 25. They're saying, we think a 20 is a good place to start. That lets us be aggressive. Lets us kind of start hammering this down a little faster than traditionally. We throw in some property taxes. They're not first-time home buyers. And what you'll see here is, let me just adjust this because this is down payment, not just 20% down. So the cool thing is we do this stuff on the fly. When I meet with clients, if we're making edits or anything, we just fix this as we go, right? So the purchase price that they're considering for this house is $975. And here are the three different levels where we looked at the conservative, the balanced, and the aggressive down payment amounts. So the 305, let's look at that scenario first. You'll see also we did not include anything on the deposit for now. And the reason I do that is at this stage in the process, it's easier for most people just to visualize, hey, I need, 324 set aside. If we threw in that $35,000 for their deposit, now you need an additional 289. But for the sake of this stage, I always think it's easiest to visualize this way. You need to have access to this much money. So we accounted for some legal costs and appraisal, land transfer tax, all that fun stuff. And you'll see we put in an extra $1,000 on closing. The reason I do this is because it's a bit of an insulation. Sometimes your previous or the previous owners or existing sellers, I should say, have maybe paid property taxes for the next quarter, or they've paid the water bill ahead, or whatever it is. They've put some money into bills, utilities, or taxes that they're not going to live there long enough to see the value in, I should say. So you've got to pay them some money back. So this kind of gives us a little bit of a buffer room if that happens, or if there's any other adjustments that have to happen with the lawyers, right? So all in, they'd be at about 324, 432. And the number to look at here is they'd have an additional $40,000 at the end, cash in hand, to do whatever they want, right? So maybe they want to buy a new car. Maybe they want to give this as an investment to their financial advisor. Maybe they want to do a renovation, right? Maybe there's um, some backyard stuff or some bedroom stuff or some bathroom stuff. Whatever it is, they've got cash in hand ready to go. Our balanced scenario where we look at here, down payment is about 325, right? Everything else stays pretty much the same minus the total home expenses. Here we've gone from 4578 to 4460, and this is strictly due to the smaller mortgage amount. Our mortgage went from 670 to 650. And then here you've got about $20,000 cash in hand, right? This is more of you replenishing that emergency fund, or actually building that emergency fund that everybody talks about needing. So whether it's a roof goes, you need that new car, you can do something in a pinch with $20,000, right? You could also invest this. You do have that option, right? And if we look at our final scenario here, we've got the aggressive one. Here, aggressive really just means how much down payment are you putting onto this, right? So here they put 350. Their mortgage will now be 625. Your monthly payment goes down to 4313, but you've got to have an extra 4,600 bucks coming from out of pocket. So whether this is additional savings you have, or you're liquidating some investments, or whatever it is, gifted down, whatever the scenario is. These are the three scenarios that we talked about, and we kind of wanted to explore and see how they were going to shake out. Now, three very different scenarios, right? The aggressive one leaves you with a smaller mortgage, but no rainy day fund. The conservative one, total opposite. And then we have obviously balanced in the middle. The other thing that I kind of really touched on very briefly was the whole variable versus fixed. So these clients have looked at a variable rate mortgage. The real reason in this scenario is just they have the appetite for this. They're comfortable with the inherent risk that comes with a variable rate mortgage. There are pros and cons to this, and and a fixed rate mortgage. But it is worth noting that they're looking at a variable rate because it aligns with them. And the biggest thing I ask people is, if you take that variable rate mortgage, are you going to lose sleep overnight thinking that the rates are going to go up? And if the answer is yes, then don't even consider it, right? So the one other thing we're going to look at is, what is the difference across our scenarios, meaning from conservative all the way to aggressive. We've got about $264 a month between those two, right? So whether that's useful to you or not, I don't think it is, but I had somebody ask me, so I threw it in one time. Now, that is sort of the three avenues that they can really look at. But don't forget, the one thing that this couple said is tied back to this amortization, right? They selected this 20-year M when they were talking to me or they brought this up, wanting to explore this as an option, because they said, we want to hammer this down as fast as possible. And it's a fantastic idea. It aligns with kind of what I tell people. And the first milestone that I kind of tell people to try to get to is try to get to a point where, if you're in a two-income household, where one of you can qualify for this mortgage on your own, right? So whatever that number is, if you guys have to get the mortgage down to 200 grand, try to hammer this down till you get to that point. Because if you're in a family and something negative happens, one of you can carry this house on your own without having to sort of sell the house out from the family. So just to take a step back, that was their goal, right? They said, we want a 20-year AM because we want to hammer this down. It'll allow us to pay this off a little faster. Well, the other thing that we decided to look at in this was the offset mortgage, right? And for those of you who have been following me on socials or have seen a previous YouTube video or whatever, you'll see that this is one way of just hammering your mortgage down as fast as possible. So when we looked at their scenario, and we kept one thing consistent in this, which was their monthly payment. We matched them up. They're actually going to pay this mortgage off in 9.7 years, and they're going to save 10.3 years, right? That's huge. They're going to save $123,000, almost $124K in interest. And this net worth increase piece is actually huge. So I used about 6% as your returns on the investment. So what this looks at is, at the end of those 9.7 years, if you took the monthly mortgage payments and you applied them to your financial advisor, how would this look? So this would give you a $655,000, 291 at 6% net worth increase, right? So the goal here is hammer it down as fast as possible, and this would actually get the couple there in half the time of what they were expecting, right? It's a pretty interesting thing um, when you look at this, and it really makes you pause and say, am I asking, or I'm usually, as the customer, the client, the consumer, asking what's the cheapest mortgage, whereas what I'm trying to really get across to a lot of folks is what's the best mortgage for your family goals, right? And now the one thing that I will say is there is no right answer here. These are all different scenarios that can get you to where you want to be. They just have a different focus, right? Obviously, with the more traditional scenarios, we were keeping a little more cash on hand, still keeping this mortgage paid down at a fairly good clip. Here, we went aggressive on the pay down, right? We didn't keep any cash on hand because this all gets applied to the offset mortgage. But in this scenario, the first and foremost goal was pay this mortgage down, right? So, uh, pretty unique scenario, pretty interesting solutions we have. So, if you're thinking about upsizing over the next year and you're wondering what your numbers might look like, send me a message, leave me a comment. I'd love to know what's holding you back or where you think some hangups are. And if you found this helpful, obviously subscribe because I'm going to try to do more of these client scenarios because real life mortgages obviously help you homeowners make smarter financial decisions. And that way we can get you to where you got to be faster. All right. Talk soon.